Can a short story be just one character moment, and that character's metaphor? Well, Ernest Hemingway seems to think so. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I am Adrian Ford, and we're here for another short story discussion, which will appear in two separate playlists here on the channel. Number one being the short story discussion playlist. Number two being a short story by short story read along of Ernest Hemingway's Finca Vigia edition. The short story in question today is known as After the Storm. I forgot my last talking point. Here we go. Simple as. Now, this video will have three separate sections: a So What Happened recap of the short story, a literary criticism section where we talk about the literary goings-on in the short story, and finally a writer's corner where we have the lessons that we could learn from this short story as writers ourselves. The short story After the Storm. So, what happened? Well, fight, fight, fight. Our narrator is being beat up, is being choked, and is beating up and stabbing. So our narrator is being choked out as the short story begins, and he ends up drawing a knife and cutting his assailant's arm and then getting free. So he runs away. He goes down to the docks, and someone tells him there's been a murder. Now, this is meant, of course, to get us in the mind of paranoia, because the main character asks, well, who killed him? And the guy that he's talking to says, I don't know, but he's dead. So then our narrator just leaves. He takes his boat down to Southwest Key. But along the way, there is a big storm, and eventually he comes to a capsized liner, a whole liner that has been capsized. And he reckons there is lots of money and lots of valuables in there. So he tries to get in. He sinks down to the sort of windows into the boat and tries to pry it off, tries to beat it off, tries to break the window with a wrench, all sorts of things, but he can't get in. He looks inside and sees a dead woman floating. He can't get back out to the capsized ship for a while because of other storms. But when he does, the Greeks have already stripped it. So, what can we take from this short story? Well, maybe this could arguably be a writer's corner note here, but the idea of this character in general, starts the story off with a fight and then mourns the Greeks having stripped the ship more than he mourns for the 400 people that were on board and inevitably died, that were washed out to sea as they drowned. He is mentioning these things and immediately turns to, man, I wish I could have got down there. Lots of money. They got the safe out. All the valuables inside now belong to someone else, and I was the guy that found all of these dead people first. It's not fair. So, just the character moment there is pretty stunning. But the main idea here with this short story is this. The short story is called After the Storm. How do we open this short story? We open this short story with a fight, something like a storm. Our main character then runs away and hits a literal storm. Then he comes upon a wrecked ship. What does that wrecked ship represent? That wrecked ship represents our main character. That wrecked ship is our protagonist. It is a metaphor for the protagonist. The ship wrecked in the storm, and our main character gets nothing out of it. Our main character seems to be a bit of a wreck, and he's not getting anything out of it. The idea here that we are starting the short story with two storms, the fight and then the literal storm, only for our protagonist to stumble upon a ship, a wrecked ship that was full and is then stripped and becomes empty and worthless, is the story of our protagonist's life. He started off somewhere, someplace, doing something. He seems to have friends, but he has to run because he hits storms. He has to run because he puts himself in these moments where all of a sudden everything is wrong. He is slowly getting himself to the place where he's not going to get anything out of life. So, this short story becomes a character. We spend the whole short story with that one character. A character moment, maybe two. So you've got the fight, which is a character moment because it shows you something about the character. And you could say that finding the ship is a character moment, but only insofar as we learn about the character we learn about the character's character because we learn about the protagonist's character by him not feeling sorry at all for the people that died in the ship. So you could kind of say that that's a character moment. I don't necessarily know that it is as much because it is not the moment forcing the character, right? With the fight, it's the moment forcing the character. With the shipwreck, he kind of comes to this conclusion on his own, right? He's going down to see the ship, and then he decides, not because of action, but after action, that it's a real shame. And then we have the metaphor of the shipwreck. So that's kind of all this short story is. A protagonist, 1.5 character moments, and a metaphor. And Hemingway does something with it. Now, as far as Writer's Corner notes are concerned for this short story, I really only have one. I'll go ahead and read it. It wasn't about anything, something about making punch. And then we started fighting, and I slipped, and he had me down, kneeling on my chest and choking me with both hands like he was trying to kill me, and all the time I was trying to get the knife out of my pocket to cut him loose. Everybody was too drunk to pull him off me. He was choking me and hammering my head on the floor, and I got the knife out and opened it up, and I cut the muscle right across his arm, and he let go of me. He couldn't have held on if he wanted to. Then he rolled out and hung on to that arm and started to cry, and I said, that's the beginning of this short story. Like I said earlier, that's a storm. So what is gained there? Well, it sets us immediately in the world of the protagonist. The world of the protagonist, it's not like it's science fiction. It's not like it's fantasy. The world of the protagonist is the world of you and I, except with a whole lot more cutting, right? So we understand where we are immediately from that small bit of short story. Here's what I will caution. Even with the power of Hemingway fully vested in this paragraph, you read this, you know it's from Hemingway. Still, it feels a bit gimmicky right off the bat. So if you're going to start a story with this kind of action, You can do it, but you have to be careful, because otherwise it looks like you're just trying to hook the reader. And I think most readers hate that sort of thing, hate just trying to be hooked. So you have to pull it off. I think Hemingway does, but it's not easy. That's all I have for this short story discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Ernest Hemingway fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel. There's poetry every Monday, and I hope to have you back for the next one.